so happy to have you here for the first virtual State of the College that I'm able to deliver as the president of Montgomery College. Thanks to each of you who are in the room, and thanks to each of you who are joining us from your various workstations, homes, wherever the case may be. I'm delighted that we're here and having this opportunity to talk about a few things as it relates to the state of this institution. This format is certainly something different for me. It is certainly different for the college in a lot of ways. We're wanting this to be a flexible experience, something that's relevant to our employees, to our students. It allows us to be able to be where everyone is and to meet them where they are, while at the same time providing an interactive opportunity by the time this is over. I like to think that we are adapting. I'm learning and growing to meet the needs of the college community. This actually is something that Montgomery College does exceptionally well, and this is something that we're going to be using to catapult us to the next level as an organization. If you think about our college's new vision statement, it clearly articulates this perspective. It says that with a sense of urgency for the future, Montgomery College will be a national model of educational excellence, opportunity, and student success. Our organization will be characterized by agility and relevance as it meets the dynamic challenges facing our students and our community. Think about a few of those key words in there. Sense of urgency, dynamic, national model, agility, relevant, challenges. These are the things that are so important about who Montgomery College is and the context in which we live and operate right now. So today, as we virtually convene as a college community, both in face and online, we come together to talk about the state of this institution. And I'm very excited to talk about the ways in which we can actualize that vision statement that you just saw, how we can make real the ways in which we choose to operate as an organization to make this something real and valuable and relevant for our students and community. I also want to name an initiative that you will hear much about, and you've been hearing a little bit about it over the last several months, but the idea being the common student experience. Ultimately, what is the common student experience? It is a set of truths about the way in which the organization will respond to the needs of each and every one of our students. It's the way in which we will define and articulate the way in which we want to meet students where they are, regardless of campus or location, credit or non-credit status, regardless of any particular professor. It's the idea that every student has an understanding about who we are as an organization and the ways in which we will respond to them as an organization. Our students attend Montgomery College, not Rockville campus, not Germantown campus, not Tacoma Park, Silver Spring campus, not just WDCE. They are students of Montgomery College. So any response that we have about the student experience has to be a collective one about how we as an institution will respond to the needs of this population. Those of us who come, the students who come to us every day, how we meet their expectations and maybe even exceed those if we can. Today, I want to dig deeper into this idea of the common student experience, what it means, and how it was defined by a group of over 60 members of the college community. Faculty, staff, administrators, students, they all came together, were part of the Common Student Experience Task Group, a group of folks who came together intentionally to ask some very powerful questions about the experiences we expect our students to have here. I think it's a very representative group, and I'm so proud of the fact that they came together and worked together for several months to create a set of truths that you'll be hearing more about. But because it's the thing that I like to do most, perhaps you can join me in telling them thank you. Many of them are in the room today. Can we do a round of applause for them? So if we use our country and as a model for the groups in which we use to create this, I think that we have to be very diligent in ensuring that every member and every voice in the college community has an opportunity to shape the future of our organization. In fact, I think this is the embodiment of a democratic process. But sometimes, as we know, democracy can be very challenging. True? Yeah. For instance, our country's constitution deliberately creates a built-in set of what we call natural tensions between the state and the federal government. And I think that these tensions are evident every day if you only read the newspapers and watch the news. You'll hear the ongoing debates about health care reform, budget deficit, the role of education mandates, and how are we supposed to respond to all of those things. I would offer to you that these are some of the same tensions, this idea of the role between the federal government and the state, that we often see portrayed in the college community. What is the role of the college versus the role of the campus? And these are things that we have to explore and be very deliberate. But I think it's an important point to note that 50 states, or in our case, 3 campuses in WDCE, we function best as a single organization, as one college, bound together around a mission and a vision and a set of values that will help guide the way in which you operate. So even though that there are 50 states with their own important issues, there are times when we have to approach issues collectively and come together as an institution. For our college, I would offer to you that these are one of these times. In fact, this is a movement that we need to be thinking about. This is our moment as an institution. I believe deeply that we have to be intrusive in the lives of our students in ways that we had not even imagined being before, even if it means making our students at times uncomfortable, perhaps even making ourselves uncomfortable in that process. I would offer to you that we need to be in their faces. It's a phrase that I often used when I was growing up. They would get in your face. So I say get in your face and help those students understand the realities that they need, but also how to connect them to services that are essential to their success. Whenever they need us, to the extent we can be there, we should do that. And we have to go to them because oftentimes they won't find their way to us. So before we talk about this movement and this forward trajectory that I hope that we'll be spending a lot of time as a college community, I'd like to revisit perhaps where we've been over the last 21 months. Before I do that, let me talk a little bit about community colleges in general. If we think about the history of community colleges, it's an important point I'd like to make about that. When World War II came to a close, our government came together and had very serious conversations about the education of our country. How will we begin to think about the ways in which education can be used to respond to any number of national issues? And the resulting Truman Commission that came together to study these issues offered a report that has been compelling in the history of higher education. And what the report found, I think it's a very powerful point, that if education is not available to everyone, it may in fact exacerbate rather than ameliorate race and class distinctions. Y'all with me on that one? Yeah. So I quote, "It's obvious that free and universal access to education in terms of interest, ability, and need of the student must be a major goal in American education." So I don't know about you, but that sounds like a movement to me. It sounds like a powerful movement. In fact, there's this wonderful quote that I heard at a conference not too long ago, and this one said that higher education was a movement before it was a series of organizations to be managed. A movement. The idea that each and every person should have access to higher education. So I would contend and offer to you that we need to go back to that model. The idea that each and every person should have access to education and be successful in that. And for me, this is the definition of a movement. And it's a movement that I think Montgomery College is more than ably able to respond to. One faculty member recently wrote me, and I thought it was very interesting. She said, we need to slow down. We're doing a lot, DeRionne. Got too much going on. There's too much change happening, too much going on. Got to slow down some. So, I went into my reflective place on that. I can do that. I kind of got into that moment. And I realized it's natural to challenge change. I understand that. That's a very natural human reaction to it. I also know that many movements have resistance as a part of how it gets started. So my response is maybe a little bit different, because I did go to my deep space and I thought about it. But my deep space told me that maybe we've been taking too little steps for too long. Perhaps as an organization, as a movement, higher education has to be thinking about how many students we may have failed in this process. Perhaps we have to think about how many more will we lose if we don't adapt our organizations in very real ways. How uncomfortable are we willing to become as we think about the future of our organization? So that's why I think about the work that we've been engaged in over the last 21 months, launching initiatives that are necessary to build the foundation and reaffirm the base of this organization. So no matter what role you've played, no matter if you have been formally a part of a task group or a task force or a committee or whatever we've called them, I value you, and I thank you so much for that. Many of you in the room have been actively engaged in this process, and it's my hope that every member of the college community continues to be that engaged. And I want to thank you because we've done a lot over the last 21 months. And a few of you I know are weary, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. We've started to anticipate and articulate our plans for the future. I think this is a very compelling idea. We have embarked on a major strategic planning initiative in which, as an organization, we are creating Montgomery College 2020. And we're creating 3, 5, and 7-year benchmarks to articulate where we will be as an organization, what our preferred future is. But here's the key to that, y'all. We're also looking at resources to ensure that we can actualize that future that we say we want to be a part of. In addition to that, we're looking at succession planning in very real ways and thinking about how we align our administrative and fiscal services to speak to that. We started to restructure our student services. I think that's amazing to me that we're doing that. But here's the part that's amazing even more, that we haven't done this in a vacuum. We've had many people within the college community actively engaged. We've been very deliberate in that. We've had people from every campus, every location. We've had faculty, staff, students, everyone possible. If you want to be a part of it, we've tried to make sure you had access to that. And participation and engagement is key to this. I once heard a quote that talked about being an American requires active and a heightened sense of engagement. I would argue that being a member of the Montgomery College community should suggest the same thing to you. This is a way that we have to not only affirm what we do well, but deconstruct and analyze the things that we've been doing and think about different approaches to solving problems that have grappled us as an institution and that our students grapple with for so long. That's why we've looked at an inclusive participatory governance process. And to date, I just got this number, we have had over 2,000 members of our college community actively vote in that process. 2,000. Can you all believe that? Everyone is having an opportunity to be actively engaged. And whether you choose it, that's your own. But the idea that everybody has the ability to do that, it also has informed the way in which we've approached other processes. Because of the feedback that I've received from members of the college community, we've renewed our classification study. We have made phenomenal progress in looking at how that process works, identifying some key moments, and we're well in place to be able to have that done by the timeline that we've talked about. That's exciting work, y'all. That says something about where we have been in our journey, the work over the last 21 months. We've also looked at ways to better align our institutional architecture. We're looking at restructuring student services so that it has a college-wide focus, not just a campus-based focus. We're looking at academic affairs, and you all should have seen a memo from Ms. Paula Matusky before she retired, where she laid out a series of very significant ideas that we have to be looking at in academic affairs. And we're moving toward this idea of an academic renewal within our organization. So that work is going to be continued by Dr. Donald Pearl, who I'm very happy to see here. And I met with him yesterday, and I talked to him for about an hour, and I said, I don't normally talk this much, and then you're sitting here right now hearing me talk this much again. But I'm delighted to have him here because we're going to be doing some very significant things in academics. We're going to be implementing a college-wide approach to how we think about our disciplines and our programs, including creating measures and benchmarks so that we're able to understand our growth and development and hold ourselves accountable. And this is essential because the future demands that. Dare I even say the present demands that level of accountability. As you all know, we're in the midst of our work for our Middle States periodic review. impressive work, but compelling work. Because Middle States has challenged us as an organization that we have to take a hard look at our organization and address potential compliance problems that are within us. Speaking of compliance, we've created an Office of Compliance here within the organization that's looking to ensure that we're compliant at every level on local, state, and federal issues and other entities that affect the well-being of our organization. That's very exciting work as well. And compliance was also the main factor that moved us toward looking at our consolidated college colors in our athletics program and the identification of a new mascot, Go Raptors, right? And these colors that unite us. I would offer to you that Raptors are entities that are known for outstanding vision, intelligence, agility to respond to its immediate needs. I know we looked that up, right? I would offer to you, though, that Raptors, though, have the same qualities as community colleges, even more so that of Montgomery College. And I would also tell you that these colors and these mascots, this is a symbolic manifestation of where we are moving as an organization. Our board chair often talks about this when he's talking about one college. He's got the mantra, y'all. He talks about one college, but he talks about this as this symbolism as being something that engages the college community on an issue that's very real for where we are as a future. One college united around the common student experience. So I've tried to recap today where we've been and how we got there, but I probably need to ask a couple other questions. Where are we? And maybe even a better one is, who are we as a college community? Today, we know this more than ever. Our students are so diverse, more diverse than any history that we've had in this organization. So we think about the fact that 68% of our students identify as Black, Asian, Hispanic, or mixed race, or multi-race. And our diversity continues to grow. According to the 2010 census, in Montgomery County, more than 30% of Montgomery County families will speak more languages than one in their home. 30%. It's compelling. So then if we also think about this, diversity isn't just about our ethnic and racial background, it's broadened. We have to think about academic diversity. And you all know this, our faculty and staff know this more than anybody in the classroom. We look about the fact that we serve both the academically challenged and the academically talented. They come to us and we meet them where they are. Many of our students, in fact, 71% of our students who entered this past fall needed some form of preparatory or developmental work. 71%. I would offer to you that number is not going to get smaller anytime soon. So how do we as an organization respond to that? At the same time, when we have this large preparatory number, we also have hundreds of students who engage in honors level work. So we have to respond to these students in ways that are very real and substantive. I would also argue that we have an economic diversity in Montgomery College in this county that we've never seen before. If you think about this, this is a compelling point that just like our students, our county has seen a significant shift in the economic diversity. A 2012 report found, and I think this is compelling, in order to make ends meet in Montgomery County, a single parent with a preschooler and one school-aged child must make an average of $77,933 annually to be successful here. $78,000 a year. That gives me pause. And it certainly helps us to understand then why in the last 5 years we've seen an 80% increase in our financial aid applications. Sign of the times, right? Nearly a quarter of our students receive Pell Grants, meaning that their average family income was less than $23,000 a year. That number's not getting any smaller, you all. It's only getting larger. So then we think about the other diversity in our class, the age gap. I find this interesting that 2/3 of our credit students are 24 and younger. These are these millennials, right? We know about the millennials, right? They're on Facebook. I don't know about you, I'm a little boring. On Friday nights, I get on the Facebook page and I look at, and they put a question out there and they expect to answer within the next 3 minutes, right? That's the millennial generation, instant gratification, right? Now you contrast that then to drastically different 1/3 of our credit students are 24 and older. They may be more in line with many of us in this room, right? Some of them are baby boomers who think about contributing to society in ways that are very significant. That's the call of the generation. Or they may be Gen Xers, a little bit like me, who believe in self-reliance and wanting to make an impact in the here and now. So all of these worlds collide in our classrooms in very real ways, right? And we have to figure out how to grapple with them. I would offer to you that a one-size approach to addressing these students is not going to be sufficient. As an organization, we're going to have to think deeper, think more richly about how do we begin to create a student experience that responds to the diversity with both breadth and depth, that allows us to meet the students where they are, while at the same time helping us as an organization grow with our own capacity to do that in a very clear, consistent, and concrete way. Again, you can see where I'm going, to the common student experience. Now, I know a lot of you are probably saying, we can't respond to everything for everybody. We can't be everything for everybody. And all of these external factors are so significant, we can't begin to do everything. I hate to be one to tell y'all, though, we're going to have to. That's the reality that we're in right now. So our students, we know they all want to be here. They want to learn. And they bring issues into the classroom. But how are we as an organization responding? And I hear you. I get it. I'm teaching a wonderful class this semester, thanks to our folks in WDCE, called Conversations of Consequence. And I have some phenomenal students in that room. As a matter of fact, one of them's in the room right now. Two of them in the room right now. What I have to tell you about that, though, is that I know about the diversity they bring into the classroom. And I know how I have to adapt and respond when I'm trying to work with them and understand where they're trying to go. But I have to tell you, it leaves me weary sometimes. But it is a great experience because it allows me to be more flexible, more real, more relevant in their lives. And it made me realize every day that we have to adapt as an organization to fit the needs of these students. So that I would offer to you that we have to rise up to meet them. We have to figure out what their needs are and be intrusive and intentional and deliberate in changing the trajectory of their lives. And we must be engaged with them to be relevant. So I want to applaud and thank our faculty and staff who've already been engaged in this work. You all have done some heavy lifting. You're looking at revamping courses and our developmental course sequencing. You are having substantive conversations about the ways in which we operate as an organization. For instance, faculty members from every campus, and I think this is important, who represent the distinct disciplines of the business degree program recently gathered together as a single group. Some of us are trying to figure out, was that for the first time in the history of those entities? In fact, they had some very substantive conversations about the AA degree. And Instructional Dean Patty Bartlett, who's here with us, says that the members enthusiastically gathered together to discuss broad views about the business program, examining current outcomes, looking at the needs of the future. They spent a lot of time trying to formulate new goals. And I got to tell you all, they had to compromise in some cases, didn't they? They had to have concessions. There might have been a few tense moments, maybe just a few. But I'm happy to report that they describe having a program that's stronger than it has ever been because they came together and had conversations of consequence. That, to me, is a significant thing about our organization. So while I want every campus program, every department to retain its own distinct flavor, the faculty and staff of our institution, we have to come together to have substantive conversations about the entire institution. And they know it, those folks who participated in this work with Dean Bartlett, they know it was hard work. It got messy from time to time, but they stuck with it. And that, I believe, was their moment. I would offer to you, it's the same for us. It is our moment as an organization. It's our movement. And at my inauguration, I think a few of you may recall that I said, I don't believe in playing small. And I think the reality right now for us is that the outcomes are too critical, the expectations are too significant. We're going to have to rise up and do some very significant work. So I know y'all are saying, a few of y'all are getting weary right now. You think, oh, DeRionne, how are we going to do this? We got all this stuff going on. How are we going to have this conversation? My board chair is probably thinking, what's she going to come up with next? The answer is really the common student experience. I want us to be able to tell our students, we know you have expectations of us, and these are how we will respond to those expectations. Probably the biggest outcome of the Common Student Experience Task Group was that the realization that the structures and services that we have in place in hopes of meeting our students' needs are actually frustrating and in some cases creating confusion for some of our students. That's a profound moment for this group of 60 folks to come together and realize. And as a result of that, the fix is they proposed the Common Student Experience. So let's get to the nitty-gritty and talk about these truths. These are truths. They're commitments to our students. They're not just assumptions. They're not just things that nice haves. These are the ways in which as a college that we're going to respond to the needs of our students, what they can expect from us, and how they can hold us accountable in meeting those needs. So let me stress right now, we know that many of these things that we've done, our faculty and staff are extremely committed. But here we are in this history taking an organizational step and definition to say, this is our moment. This is what we're going to do as a college to respond to the needs of our students. I want us to be phenomenal. We have to be for our students, don't we? Yeah, we have to be. So truth one, smart start. Montgomery College will help students start smart with successful introduction to college work. Part of our reality and our challenge is that many of our potential students face dozens of challenges even before they get to our doors. Their lives are so complex and so rich that oftentimes we have to figure out ways to help them come to us, figure out ways for us to help them help themselves, right? So we have to figure out a way to ensure that college access is not yet another burden for them. I'd like to introduce you to a student, Isaiah.
Walking out the door now. Should be a nice day. Very good morning. I started Montgomery College in 2010. My life took a few turns and twists, and my situation in Montgomery County was very difficult. I had to leave where my residence at the time, and I had to make a choice. My mom, my brothers, they were residing in Prince George's County, and that was a long commute. It was about a 2.5, almost 3-hour commute every day. So at that time, it was either I still continue to do that commute or I go to a homeless shelter. So I decided to go to the homeless shelter, and it was very, very difficult, the things I seen there. I knew of Montgomery College. I just didn't know much about it and know what it had to offer. I came out here after I had a son, and my life was just going down. I wasn't doing the best of things, and I looked into Montgomery College, and wow, they had so much to offer and so much that I can get a hold of. So fall 2010, was my first semester here. So I like to see various counselors and advisors, but one particularly is Clifton McKnight.
You continue to set the stage, man. You just keep doing what you're doing. You'll make a difference.
He's really been in my corner, supporting me and helping me just keep pushing and pushing through. Montgomery College has been just a blessing. I would love to be a great example to my son and show him that no matter whatever you go through, whatever life brings you, that to keep on trying, to keep on striving, that you can always achieve it, even in the hardest and the toughest of situations. Got some good news that I'll be moving into my own place very soon, so that's kind of the highlight of the week.
We're already planning that moving in party. I think I promised the baked beans, right, for the barbecue? For our students, we have to provide maximum accessibility and minimal barriers to enrollment. Their lives demand that. Their expectations of this institution should demand that. The Common Student Experience Task Force suggests some wonderful ways to do this by providing every student with single step-by-step enrollment information so that someone can follow from beginning to end with knowledgeable points of contact within the organization to assist that student from the moment they make contact until the moment they leave. But that's not enough. The task group also suggested that we must clearly articulate the processes before a student enrolls, right? Not when they get, before they enroll, by focusing our outreach efforts in ways that we are connecting with our community, dare I say our communities, in ways that are significant for those students so they can have access to us, so that all students can attend Montgomery College regardless of the background or experiences that they come from. The key word here is to understand the processes and to understand the complexity of the lives that they bring with them. A new beginning, like starting college, can be very daunting, can be very overwhelming for a lot of our students, but we need to take steps to demystify the process, the one that we know so well, but that many of our students do not know. And I experienced this myself. You all know the most precious thing in my life is this little 5-year-old boy that I have. And Miles starts kindergarten this fall. I don't know about y'all. It's funny, y'all get to watch him grow up. But I have to tell you, we got our kindergarten packet, registration from our local school district. And I have to tell you all, we have 5 degrees in my family. Between the two of us, we have 5 degrees. I was overwhelmed by that. I had to go out and make my own checklist to figure it out, and I had to call superintendent up, and I told him, I said, look here. I'm invested in you professionally, but I'm also invested in you personally now because I'm going to give you my most precious gift, but I'm trying to figure out how to get there, right? So I think about that for me in preparing this little kid for kindergarten. Can you imagine our students who are coming to us and their families? Think about that diversity I talked about earlier, how they can experience and interact with our organization. How deliberate and intentional can we be in demystifying that and making sure that we don't stand in their way and become another burden? That takes us to truth two. Once a student has enrolled here, there's a whole new set of experiences, and it says that maintain a foundation of support opportunities. Montgomery College will support success by ensuring that college faculty and staff provide a foundation of the best possible support opportunities for our students. My first month here at the institution, I happened to be walking around campus, and a student figured out who I was and talked to me about the fact that she didn't have access to a particular piece of writing software on her campus as she had, that she knew existed on one of our other campuses in Montgomery College. Then I compound that the following week when I'm having a group conversation with some of our students at our Germantown campus, and they talk to me about the distinctions between our tutoring services, what they could access at the Germantown campus versus the process and what they could access at Rockville, and I didn't even dare to ask the question of how we do the Tacoma Park Silver Spring, because I knew we'd have 3 different versions for our students. That's somewhat troubling for me. So as an organization, the Common Student Task Group, they talked about this idea of ensuring that our students understand our processes. And we see this on our college's Facebook. Again, those of you who don't do it, just go on the Facebook sometime and just scan it. One student writes about internet access. The student says, it's been going on since the beginning of the semester, and despite leaving voicemails about it from many students, no one seems to be doing anything about it. This is on the college's Facebook page, y'all. So I'm fully aware the students aren't always blameless. Sometimes they can embellish, right? But these statements speak to a truth that we have to think about. There's a disconnect sometimes between what we believe we're delivering and then what our students may be experiencing. So the Common Student Task Force, they talked about this task group. They centered this truth on guaranteeing that our students have access to technology, resources, and facilities that foster student success. They talked about updated and accessible technology so that we would have 100% Wi-Fi on every campus and location for our students. I'm also putting Manatee in that, right? Knowledgeable college personnel who are up to date on college programs and services in such a way that they are proficient with the use of hardware and software to assist our students, right? They talk about this idea of accessible, informative, and user-friendly website and student portal, which has access to library resources that allow students to have online forums, virtual computer labs, and more. And that's all in truth number 2. But allowing students to easily interface with the college is critical for truth number 3. And truth number 3, get connected. Montgomery College will encourage students to get connected by engaging the college experience and utilizing a wealth of resources that are available to them. And I wholeheartedly agree with this task group when they talk about the fact that we need to synergize student engagement opportunities in such a way that a student is able to understand the power of the connection between what happens in their classroom and what happens outside of the classroom experience, what happens in our various support areas, that it all comes together for students in very real ways. The best chance that we have in empowering our students to change their lives, very simple one, is for us to engage with them on an emotional and visceral connection. That we have to make sure that we understand and meet them where they are, understand what motivates them to be successful. This is the idea of having a direct impact in their success. You know, the renowned New York Times columnist David Brooks, who I love reading his stuff, he wrote this issue in his book called The Social Animal. And through fiction, he uses some very recent research on cognitive theory, where he talks about the idea that what makes us tick as humans is that most of our thinking happens below the level of awareness. Most of our thinking and what makes us tick happens below the level of awareness. So we act oftentimes based on our heart and not our head, right? So how do we make a emotional connection to our students? That's what I'd like to figure out. Let's teach them to empower themselves in the classroom and beyond. We have to be more for them than just a number of credits to be accumulated. We have to be an experience for them that empowers their life in very real ways. I would offer to you as part of our social contract with our community to create engaged citizens who understand not only how to empower themselves, but how to give back and be vital in our community. How do we do this? Perhaps we get their families engaged, get their parents engaged in what's happening with them. That's why plans to restructure our adult services and our parent services and family services is going to be so important on all of our campuses. Not just one, just not two, all of our campuses. But we have the potential to affect not only just that student who comes to us, but their family. And if we think about that, it goes beyond the family to the community. And it goes beyond the community, it goes to our whole county. And it goes beyond our county to our state. We can talk about that pebble, the ripple effect can be so profound. It can be something that touches the rest of our lives forever. So I think about how our students come to us with different backgrounds and different sets of expectations and how we meet them to do that. Let's meet Tiara.
When I first got here, I didn't have money for books, and I was like stressing out, pulling my hair out, and I went to admissions, and they sent me up to student life, and that's where I met Jim Walters, and he sent me up to Miss Kim McGettigan, and that is when my life changed forever.
Don't forget those.
She got me some money for books, and I asked her, I was like, I also need a job. I know this is a lot. A few weeks later, she called me. She's like, hey, are you still looking for a job? I have a student position available. And after that, it was like I was in love. My first intention was never to stay at MC. It was just come here, get like 12 credits, 24, and then escape. After the first semester, I was talking to an advisor, and they was like, you should stay and get your associate's degree. Because if you have your associates, no matter what goes wrong later on after, you always have that degree to fall back on.
Tiara
I graduated
Washington.
from Montgomery College, the Tacoma Park campus, last May, so May 2011. And then the fall, I went straight to Frostburg State, where I am continuing my education. I'm getting my bachelor's in mass communication with a minor in public relations. Over the breaks, I like to come back to MC and work. This is where I feel like my family is. A lot of people want to see me succeed, and that's built this I don't know, this fire inside of me that I want to see myself succeed so that I can show everybody else, hey, you told me I can do it, and I did it. And it's just, really, I can't even find the words to just describe MC, like how they've made me who I am today.
Thank you, Kim, for being in her life. I know that's your baby. And I see her all the time. Still now, I go out to the campus, and she's still here. And I love the fact that Montgomery College was there for her, that one-on-one connection. And this idea that we are not just her place that she goes to school, we are indeed her family. We're her community. And that takes us to the next truth, truth 4, build community. Montgomery College will build community by ensuring students' experiences that are equitable, respectful, inclusive, and a caring environment where everyone matters. Now, I don't know about you, but we talk about this, and I love the fact that the task group talked about this, that we are cultivating and growing seeds in our students, that hopefully, if we are lucky, they may come back full circle and be a part of us, or we may not. We may not see that, but we know we've planted this seed. It's kind of like, I'm a huge NPR junkie. A lot of you all who know me hear me every day. Did you hear this on NPR? Did you hear this on NPR? And what I love about it is it literally feeds my mind. I would even say it feeds my soul. But and I love their tagline, the mind is our medium. So I love the fact that oftentimes when I go to bed at night, I feel smarter than I did when I woke up that morning because I was actively engaged and I was a part of that, and they've engaged me over the day in different ways. I want our college to do the same thing for our students. I want us to actively engage them, have them so connected, so deeply rooted in who we are and invested that they thrive. Can you imagine what that would look like? Let's encourage that through student life. Have them be engaged. I found myself in student life, and I think about that for our students. I'd love for them to have that. I think about the fact that wouldn't it be nice that we built in blocks of time when nothing occurred on the college community but opportunities for students to engage themselves in real work. Wouldn't that be exciting? Wouldn't it also be wonderful if we can encourage international study for every one of our students? Wouldn't that be awesome? I remember the first time I went out of the country. Changed my life. Changed my life. Wouldn't it be great to have every student have that experience? Can we build our curriculum around cultural experiences and opportunities that allow students to make the connections about what's happening in their world and in their classroom and how they may, dare I say, transform that world? That would be very exciting for us. So I think we also have to build community within communities so the students can feel connected and understand how their experiences shape who they are within the organization. And I think the other thing that we have to do about this is to also acknowledge that there are going to be special needs for certain parts of our population. I think about our Boys to Men program and the work that they've done in terms of alerting students who may be at high risk and talking about intervening and intentionally getting in their faces, right? That's what we're talking about. This idea that as an organization, and I find it rather unacceptable, that we have significant achievement gaps for our African American and Hispanic students, yet and still we tout our diversity. To me, that's hypocritical. So we can tout our diversity, but not talk about the fact of success of those student populations not being at the same level as our majority students. That's a problem for me. It's an unacceptable one. So as an organization, how do we begin to look at, again, y'all see how this speech is going? We talked about the diversity of this county. We've got to be thinking about how we react to that within this organization. And I think that then, if we can help students feel a part of a community, then it begins to have them actualize the future that they want to have for themselves. And that takes us then to truth 5. Enhance the classroom experience. Montgomery College will enhance the classroom experience, whether in non-traditional or classroom setting, to ensure all students receive the best possible education. Whether it's credit or non-credit, in person or online, our instruction cannot be confined to the classroom boundaries that we have there. We have Michelle McQueen, one of our Tech Leap students, who has described, and I love how she says this, that WDCE has meant having her own personal career handler. Isn't that awesome? a headhunter who helps connect her educational and professional pursuits. Let's meet Michelle.
Good morning. My typical day starts with getting my family off to school and work. Okay. Then I'd come to class and work here for about 3 hours in the portfolio building class.
And we're going to do another static web page today because the little list of things that I've got up here on the board.
My previous work experience was with information systems, and I had enjoyed it very much. So I started looking for how I could retrain and still balance the fact that we had, relatively young children. My experiences with the Tech Leap program have been very positive. I did have a strong sense of camaraderie in my class. As adult learners, we all did lean on each other, and many of us came to the program with similar experiences. WDCE's Tech Leap program has served me very well, and it's like anything that you do in life. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. Wonderful colleagues. It's a great place to start networking if you haven't been, or to continue networking. It opens up lots of possibilities.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing your story. The Common Student Experience Task Group really stressed that the classroom experience should be one that fosters learning beyond the classroom, that it connects the student and makes real the learning that is occurring there. So I think we have to continue to have and take a very serious look at our courses to make sure that they're relevant, to make sure that they're connecting classroom experience with what's happening outside of our classroom, even dare outside of our organization. How can we encourage our faculty and staff to be actively engaged in that process of staying relevant? But I think we can do that through encouraging our faculty and staff to take advantage of our innovation fund. I'm very excited to see the numbers of folks who are applying and looking at course redesign, looking at supplemental materials and experiences for students. Powerful work that's being done there. I look at our new science facilities at Rockville and our new science building that we'll be doing at the Germantown campus, and we're looking at how that space can be used intentionally to create student learning. So I love the fact when we look at one of our engineering faculty members talk about these pods that they started to create where students can sit down as they might in a real work environment, right, and work together on a project to figure out and talk it through. Isn't that great? I love the fact that we're having these types of conversations about not just what happens in the classroom, but the space outside of the classroom to make it real for our students. We're doing this by looking at all of our labs and having a common approach to that. And I think we also have to look at how we can formalize the learning that can come from peer-to-peer interactions. I'm so struck by the fact that you can see students in these pods teaching each other. Isn't that awesome? So how do we do that? Can we pay them to do it? Can we create a supplemental instruction programs and we pay students to help each other out? Wouldn't that be huge? Because then we also know the students are staying on campus longer, right? And they're working with each other, therefore hopefully getting toward completion. It's a master plan, y'all, right? All right. So if we think about this, I think it takes us to truth 6. Encourage student success every step of the way. Montgomery College will encourage student success at every step of the student's educational journey. So let's be honest. Sometimes our students get lost, right? Sometimes that they can't find their way. Sometimes they don't come back to us when they get lost. They end up without mentors. They end up without an educational experience. So I believe that we have to empower our students so that they know the many educational options and resources that are available to them. When Phu Cao moved to the United States from Vietnam, he already had a bachelor's degree in robotics and automation technology. He came to our college to learn English, but once here, he found out that our college had so much more to offer. Let me introduce you to Phu.
It's almost 7 and I'm ready to leave the house. I started in fall 2008 with MC, and through the placement test I put in the last ESL class, and then I started from there. MC have a lot to offer here, And after 2 semesters, I decided that, okay, I'm gonna sit for more classes, like in foundation, in, let's say, in business science and management. And I've been receiving a lot of help from instructors. They not only care about like what they're teaching in the class, but they also help me a lot in terms of the cultural adaptations and explain every little detail. I feel more like personal care with MC, particularly at Germantown campus. The student ambassador, they came out and shook my hand and said that, okay, how I can help? Do you have any questions? Or maybe they just tell me their experience, because for the folks come to MC and come to the state in general, I don't know what I don't know. Jessica and Becky. This is my second semester to be president of Student Senate. At the time I ran for election like this, I never thought that I can now get this position, but then it just happened. Here, you're gonna receive the same quality as anywhere else, and then also you're gonna get more out of what you ever think of. And as long as you really want to strive for that, and then also want to explore and take full advantage of what offered at Montgomery College, if they feel that they're part of the college, they're gonna invest more in their experience here.
Thank you, Phu. He was able to come here and chart a new path at Montgomery College. He was able to tap into resources to help him be successful. But not all students know how to do that, and not all students have the experience of fulfilling those goals. So how as an organization can we be, again, intentional and deliberate in shaping that for our students? And I agree with the task group when they said that we must help students understand the direct impact of their assessment scores when they come to the institution to take them. Those are high-stakes tests. And we often know our students come in underprepared and unassuming about what the impact of that score is going to be. I think that we have to spend time as an organization talking about how we prepare them. And on our Facebook page, our students want more accurate information. You know, one student writes about the financial aid process and says, I've been told 2 different things. How do I make sure and know which one is the right one? Again, information the students receive can't be ad hoc. And I go back to the point, I know that they may not have been told 2 different things, but they heard 2 different things. So how do we ensure that to the extent we can, that as an organization, we're doing something different there? I think we also have to have serious and provocative conversations with ourselves. If we know that first-year experience is a powerful one for student success, why don't we require it? Right? If we know that our first-year students have a hard time navigating our campuses, why don't we require orientation for them? I'm on a roll now, huh? If we know that our FAFSA form is so complicated, why don't we try to figure out how to complement the phenomenal work that financial aid does in a face-to-face version by trying to do it in an online and virtual one? Wouldn't that be powerful for our students as well? So this idea of how do we stretch ourselves to do some different things. So I love the fact that Student Services is asking these types of questions. They're sitting there talking about college-wide advising services. They're talking about counseling services. They're talking about first-year experience orientation programs. They're talking about welcome centers. I don't know about you all. Have you come on a college campus lately? Go to another one and figure out how you get in. A welcome center, what a novel concept. So the students know where they go. This is exciting. This brings us to Truth 7. Plan to cross the finish line. Montgomery College will help students develop their own plans to cross the finish line and complete college. In the words of the task group, quote, students will engage in and receive guidance from a comprehensive advising program that includes the development of an educational plan with advising from faculty counselors and faculty advising cadre members that assist in the development of identifying career, transfer, and academic goals. That's powerful work there, y'all. Actualization of that is even going to be more powerful. The language here is important, that we will guide our students. We won't wait for them to ask. We're going to guide them. It kind of reminds me of a GPS. I have a love-hate relationship with my GPS right now, I have to tell you. But instead of this global positioning service that we have in our cars right now, our system, I think we need to provide a college guidance path system that can't be disabled, right? That a student, from the moment they start at this organization, is a very clearly identified, and they can make changes, right? But just like you do it, because you're not correcting, it tells you on your GPS, correcting, or whatever. Okay, so now, how do you get the student right back on that path from time to time? A student can alter it, but we don't alter their destination to get done and be completed, right? So the idea that the task group has that, they talked about momentum point recognitions. Isn't that exciting? As an organization, we recognize students at various points in their experience, and we recognize that that is a significant milestone toward completion. They talked about automatically checking in on students' progress. That the students will, if they haven't met with a counselor in a certain number of semesters, they will be required to do so. Whoa, that's some good stuff right there. They talked about this idea that we would have an academic plan that a student has to check in on a regular basis to ensure that they're meeting that. That's powerful stuff there. They talked about the idea that many of our students have these slippery spots, and we know this. So how do we begin to intervene before they get to that slippery spot, right when they're on the edge, and we kind of bring them back in again. We have to get involved with them from the first failed assignment. Wouldn't it be wonderful that a faculty member is able to know exactly that they can connect the student with someone who's going to help them from the moment they see you're at risk? And we know this. Faculty, I know it when I taught. I could tell the student who was having problems. Now, how intentional could I be when I had 125 of them each semester? How do we begin to do that? And how do we recarve our organization in ways to do that? We do a great job with our early alert system for our students who exhibit emotional distress. I want to do the same thing for academic distress. Wouldn't that be powerful for our students? I suggest that we also look at our institutional policies and practices, such as late registration. So I'm going to tell y'all, I think we send a mixed message. We talk about every day of class is important, but the first 2 weeks are expendable if you want to come in late. That's not a good institutional process. But we also have to figure out then what's going to be the solution for those students. Having more late start classes that may have extended amounts of time so the students can go, you know what, this class has already started, but guess what? In a week we have something else that starts for you. That requires the flexibility and agility in our scheduling that we have to have and designing the schedule around student needs. So let's look at innovative ways to do that. I'm constantly struck by the fact that we have lots of work that needs to be done, and our students have to be thinking about the needs that we have. But these are the 7 truths, and I thank that task group for the work that they did. It was unbelievable how you all came together over several months and really articulated what the institution can do for our students and what our students should expect from us. Doesn't mean that every student is going to look, every student experience is the same, and every campus is going to be exactly the same. I don't want that. You all have often heard me talk about the fact that I have one sister, and many of you saw her at my inauguration. This beautiful, tall, thin, accountant, and very different. If any of you spend any time with us, we're very different in a lot of different ways. But at the core of who we are the Pollard girls, right? I'm waiting to become a woman at home. But we go home into the neighborhood. I go to the church where I was raised and the community where I was spent. They always say, Paul, how's your girls doing? We're Paul Pollard's girls, always have been, always will be, because there's a set of values that guide us, as a distinction about who we are that connects us as that. That's the same thing I want us to have at Montgomery College. We can have multiple campuses and locations, but there's a core distinction about who we are and how we serve our students. I'd like to say that these are the things that guide us, that help us make the informed decisions about how we will function as an organization. So at the end of the day, whether you are at the Rockville campus, the Germantown campus, the Tacoma Park Silver Spring campus, our WDCE building in Gaithersburg or in Wheaton, that we are all Montgomery College. We are one institution, and therefore we must function as one institution. So I need your help. This isn't going to be something I can do. I can craft a vision and we can talk about it, but at the end of the day, all of us have to come together to actualize that. The state of the college is just the beginning. I believe that we have the next big thing is to actually implement and actualize. That's really the hard work that has to occur right now. And over the coming days and weeks, I'm going to be coming to college campuses to hear your reaction to these truths and to hear your thoughts and how we began to actualize these as a college community. Starting this fall, our new governance system is going to take the opportunity to hear and accept formal feedback from the college community on these types of issues, and also take information back to ensure that every member of the college community is engaged and understands what the issues are. And I hope that each of you will take the opportunity to share your thoughts and perspectives and be actively engaged in this, because we all need that in order to survive. There's a mutuality about the work we do. I think we all have an obligation to be involved. We have an obligation to stay connected, to make sure that our experiences for our students are the ones that they need at this particular moment. Where one part of our college succeeds, all parts of the college will succeed. It reminds me that also that when one fails, we all fail, right? There's a mutuality to our existence. So if our destination and our destiny as a higher educational institution, we have to understand that we are inextricably linked to each other. Every campus, every employee group, every student experience, we're all connected to each other. There's a mutuality to our narrative. We are dependent on each other. There's perhaps no better orator than Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who captured this idea in the Birmingham letter. He wrote that. And he says, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside of the United States can never be considered an outsider." So let me just put it this way for you all. Anyone who lives inside of Montgomery College can no longer be considered an outsider. We are mutually connected to each other. We cannot put ourselves in silos and separate ourselves based on false constructs that do nothing to support the needs of our students. Not by campus, not by department, not by job title, not by employee group, not by all the things that we choose to define ourselves by on any given time. We cannot otherize other people and other experiences because it's different than our own. Our world is changing so fast around us. How are we as a college rising up to respond to that? We cannot allow our students to not be successful. We can't otherize them. And I would offer to you, we can't wait. We can't wait. We don't have the time or luxury to do that. Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement, a few of y'all have studied this, you know that they were often told to be patient, right? Calm down, your time is a-coming. Don't stir the pot. Wait, it's going to happen. We already knew, though, that the pot was overflowing. As we study that right now, it was their moment, right? I'm going to offer to you, it's our moment now as a college. We have the opportunity to define the future we want to have and the experiences that our students deserve from us, what our community needs from us. It was a movement then, and this is our movement now. In higher education, I think we stand at a crossroads. We owe it to our students to push forward. We have an obligation, it's a part of our social contract. And over the last 21 months, I think we've revisited lots of our vulnerabilities. We've confronted some of our own biases. We've had courage in having very difficult conversations. And I think we're becoming more steadfast as we prepare for a few more. But I would argue that the state of our college is stronger than ever. It is stronger than ever. This is our movement. This is our moment as an organization. And we get to define what we want our future to be, each and every one of us. So as Phu says, I sat in his office when he was meeting with one of our state senators, and to this day, it makes me cry every time I think about it, so I'm not going to cry now. And he said that if you dare to knock on the door of opportunity, Montgomery College answers. Oh, it gives me a chill every time I hear about it. If you dare to knock on the door of opportunity, Montgomery College answers. We have to embrace this moment so that every time a Phu knocks on the door, a Michelle knocks on the door, an Isaiah knocks on the door, a Tulu knocks on the door, that we are prepared to answer, and that we have the courage as an organization, not as a campus, but as an organization, to answer them. Thank you all so much for being here, and we're going to take some questions. So I'm going to toss it to John, who actually, we have a series of questions coming in multiple ways, and I'll let you introduce that.
All right, thanks. I'm John Hammond. I'm a faculty member here, and I'll be moderating the discussion here. And we'll take questions from both the live audience and from those of you that are viewing us remotely. If you're here, you can simply stand up, and I'll come find you. If you're viewing this remotely, you can email a question to State of the College, all one word, at montgomerycollege.edu, and we'll print those and read those off. To start the questions here, I wrote up just a quick one here to make sure we had some questions for you.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
So it was, can you factor the following polynomial? Oh no, these are my lecture notes. But
A squared plus B squared? No, go ahead.
But as a classroom teacher, I want to get these ideas down to kind of the classroom level. We talked a lot about the academic diversity that our students have and how we have to adjust for that, as well as wanting to encourage innovation in the classroom and yet balance that with this idea of the common experience for all the students. And so as an instructor, when I struggle between how much innovation I should have versus how much I should make my class like the other classes, do you have any advice for that?
I think that's a great question, John. I would argue that there are a set of outcomes. Now, just so y'all know, these are not paying questions, so I don't know the questions, and I'm going to just speak to you the way that I know how to do. What I believe is that there are a set of outcomes that we articulate for every class within this organization. Every course, there is a set of outcomes, and we say these are the things the students should be able to do and know and experience as a result of this learning experience. True? Now, how we do that is going to be different, right? But the key is also going to be in how we assess that. So I think there are some interesting conversations we need to have about common assessment in some areas, I would argue. And before somebody, I'm not saying you got to go out and do it, but I think it's an interesting conversation to have. What you do in your classroom is going to be representative of the type of instructor that you are, the type of faculty member, the comfort you have in certain types of modalities. But at the end of the day, we have to be understanding the commonality is in what the students should know and be able to demonstrate, and how we assess that at the end. Because this is what Middle States is asking us, right? Those of you who've been following our Middle States assessment, they're asking us very clearly as an organization, it's great, because what we have tended to do in higher education is emphasize this middle part, right? So we'll say, okay, we started talking about common outcomes, so we have some of that together. But what is the magic of the classroom, right? We talk about that magic that occurs all the time in the learning, but what we haven't had a serious conversation about, and where the hard work comes in, is ensuring that the students have learned what we said they were going to learn up here through the magic of the classroom, right? So that, to me, is a conversation. As a faculty member, I never, when I first started here, and they came in and they gave me a briefing on the developmental math redesign. I don't know if you remember this. I said, it's okay if you fail. It's the fact that you tried. And that, I think, is the conversation that we have to have. It is very uncomfortable doing something different. It is very uncomfortable stepping out of and asking something, but y'all did it. And that's the beautiful part, and we're seeing the results that are coming from that. So I would suggest at the classroom level, it becomes the connective tissue of your course to the other courses in your program of study, but also at the individual class level. How does this class, if the commonality is at the beginning we articulate the outcomes and the assessment at the end, your magic and individuality occurs in that space and place when you're teaching those students. That's my thinking.
Fabulous. Thank you. How do you plan to inspire students enrolled with various honors opportunities? How can we make them accessible?
Honors opportunity. I think it's interesting. There was a task group that worked on this issue this past year, and we have paused it. I think we have to have a conversation as an institution about our honors programs and to look at commonality. I think we have to have a serious conversation that we move toward a more equitable way of doing honors. Should we have an honors program on every campus that's both full and part-time? Should we also have conversations about what does it mean to be an honors institution? There's a movement, Miami-Dade Community College is actually creating an honors college. Now, I don't know if I have an answer if that's a good thing or not, but I'm willing to ask the question, right? As an organization, should we be having a conversation about an honors college, and what does that really mean? And how does that look? And how do we ensure that there's a diversity of the student experience in that? How do we ensure that it's also supplementing what occurs for everyone's class, not just the honors classes? So to me, there's a great level of unpacking, and there's a lot of ownership also. There a lot of our programs, when you build something from the ground up, it's always not comfortable to step back and have the conversation. I'm willing to ask the question, and I think we need to have that conversation because oftentimes we talk about special populations. We talk a lot of times about developmental students. We have to have the same conversation for our honor students. We have to have the same conversation for our athletes. We have to have the same conversation for our students of color, our students who are in health. Let's engage in the dialogue.
And I'll take more online questions, but there's questions in the audience too. If you raise your hand, I can come get a question from you.
Thank you. All right. No questions, just the quietest bunch of folks I've ever seen.
Let me follow up with another question here about how we as a college can make our plans for both these truths that you laid out, but yet provide the flexibility that we need for what our future students are going to be like in 5 to 10 years from now, what our facilities are going to be like, what the campus is going to be like once we make some of the changes that are in place right now.
I love this. We actually took this out of the speech because it's something many of you have heard me say when we went around and talked about the student services reorg. And here's a good opportunity for me to talk about this now. A friend of mine who is an organizational development consultant, his wife is a cardiac nurse. And he had this opportunity to try to help. She was explaining to him cardiac health. And she talked about the fact that cardiac health is not actually measured in the way in which your heart responds when you go up, 5 or 10 flights of stairs. You run up the stairs, you get to the top. You're supposed to be winded. You're supposed to have to catch your breath a little bit, but then you're supposed to do it and keep on going, right? She said the true sign of cardiac health is in the recovery. So how long it takes your heart to recover after you've run up those 5 flights of stairs, right? So she said, you're supposed to be winded, you're supposed to be uncomfortable, but it shouldn't take you half an hour to catch your breath again. You shouldn't be pouring sweat for the next half an hour. That really is the recovery. So he, in his brilliant self, because I think it is brilliant, has translated this to organizational wellness and health. So he says an organization is constantly in a point of experiencing stress. And your body experiences stress. That's what the whole stair thing was, stress. But if your body is experiencing stress, you recover. It's the same thing with an organization. We're in a constant state of stress. In higher ed, the stress has become so significant and it's changing we are in the most stressful period we have ever been in higher ed, and will probably be the new norm. This is going to become the new norm. So the key is not to have these moments of stress that when you go, woo, and your heart goes, and it takes you forever to recover, and everyone is like, oh, good God Almighty, this happened, and we don't know how to react as an organization. What he argues is that we want to get to a point where we're constantly able to manage stress, and we recover quickly, because that's the new norm. So instead of having these big loops, he says we should get to this, where the recovery is quicker. So your heart and your organization understand stress. You become more agile, you can anticipate stress now too. Isn't that cool? So that to me is, I think, what we have to do is we think about, performance-based funding. I'm leading a state task force on this. Y'all know what? It's here. We've been fighting it forever and a day. We've been hemming and hawing. It ain't going away. That's real. Facility challenges are going to be real. Funding issues. So how do we diversify that? Our board is having very serious conversations with me. How do we become more entrepreneurial as an organization? How do we begin to use our talent in such a way that we're less dependent on public funds? Those are very serious, and that's the new organization. So when I talk about Montgomery College being the most relevant community college in the country, it's because we start to ask those questions and develop solutions to them as well. John?
Great. Given the economy, how do we do more with less?
I think that's a great question. I would question whether or not let me put it this way. The first question is an analysis of what we're doing, right? So what we tend to do in higher education, Mr. Math faculty member, we're good with the art of addition. We're probably even exceptional with the art of multiplication, but we are awful at the art of subtraction, right? So what we end up doing is we keep adding on, and we keep adding on, but what we don't do is assess what we've been doing to see if it's viable, sustainable, real, and if it's something that should continue to be done. And then some things need to be stopped. I have one of my board members is frequently saying that to me. What are we going to stop doing if we're going to start doing this? So one of the things, as you all know, we're having conversations with the organization about when we have people who leave the organization, the assumption has always been that we kind of refill them and put them right back where they were, right? That's not the conversation that needs to be had right now. The conversation is going to be, where do we need them? How do we align these things with our priorities? How as an organization do we say, this was a great program, project, service at that particular point in time, and now it's time to redefine and look at something different. Those are the ways when we do that. And then the other part about it, to be quite frank, is that we look at more entrepreneurial opportunities to fund the things we want to do. We have a phenomenal WDCE area, phenomenal. They are the largest sector of this institution. And you know what they do? They help support this organization of millions of dollars. And nobody would know it, right? But that's a very real thing we have to do. We have to have serious conversations about the ways in which we spend our money, right? We have to be good stewards of the taxpayers' resources. It's not ours, it's theirs. So those are some of the ways I think we start to do that. And so the question is, will we do more with less? I might argue that we're going to do different types of things with less. And ultimately, it might be more, because it might be more efficient. It might be more relevant at the time. So there are a series of things that go into that. But here's the beautiful part, y'all. I don't have all the answers to this one. That's y'all. That's a part of our strategic planning process, a part of our program review process. It's a part of our college area review process. All those hard processes that we just kind of been doing and wrote. If Kathy Wesson were here, she already got a meeting on me to have a serious conversation about some of the outcomes from our college area review this year. Let's have a serious conversations about some of our programs that may not be producing graduates. They may not have enrollment. Do we need to have a program for everything? Can we have a series of courses? These are things we have to have deep conversations about, and they're hard ones. Right, Dawn? I think you had a question up here.
Dr. Pollard, you mentioned having a point of contact for students regardless of where they are in the institution or where they come into the institution to help them get to and through completion. How do we work, what's your idea, or how do we ensure that regardless of which faculty or staff or administrator that student comes in contact with, he or she gets to where he or she needs to be? Because sometimes, I get a lot of students who stop in my office, for instance, and they don't know where to go they don't know what the question is they should ask. And someone said, one of the students said, I don't know what I don't know. So I don't even know what questions I need to ask to get the information that I need to help me get to where I want to be. How do we help the faculty, staff, and administrators even to know the points of reference whether to get the students to that information?
It's interesting. I have a debate going on with one of my presidential friends. And, every once in a while we call each other up with a new idea. And his idea lately is that he said, I need to hire more generalists and less specialists. And I kind of, so I said, what do you mean by that? And where are you going to put them? And we start, kind of deconstructing this idea. The point that he was making, which I think is an interesting one, is that there is a common knowledge base that every employee of the organization should have. Now, the question is, how do we ensure that people have that information? How do we build that into performance assessment? And then how do we build that into ultimately looking at how we classify and compensate employees? That, to me, is the line there. As an it's interesting. I like to study other organizations outside of higher ed. And I can guarantee you, if there's certain ones you think about, you look at Fast Company, Harvard Business Review, they talk about best companies to work for. They have a very clear understanding of their mission. They have a very clear understanding of the vision of the organization. They understand their role, but they also know there's a commonality that all employees have to have. I would argue that that's part of what we have to think about. What is the common pieces of information that every employee should have? And if they don't have that information, they know where to refer people to. So there's an instructional process that our jobs are going to become more, and people talk about the presidency has changed in the last 10 to 15 years. Presidents used to be the ones who, really focus inward within an organization. They spent a lot of time on issues that were germane only to the internal functions of the organization. That has changed significantly. Many of you who know, you look at my public calendar, I'm half the time I'm either in Annapolis, I am at the county council somewhere, we're talking about fundraising. There's a very different type, so the job has evolved. So the question, I think, is then how do we sort of think about the nature of work? Has the nature of work for our employees evolved at the same way in which our students' expectations have evolved? And we have to have those types of conversations. And I think the last one is that there was some work being done by Madison Area Technical College, I believe, and this was probably 10 years ago. They were looking at and doing an analysis of the nature of faculty work. And I thought it was a powerful thing. I haven't seen how it turned out. But I love the idea of sitting down and saying, are there different types of roles based on whatever employee group you're in? And how do we as an organization develop our infrastructure to support that? So do we have at our welcome centers generalists who are able to tell students this basic information, and once it moves beyond that point, we move to this different level here? Do we have faculty whose roles may be part classroom instruction, part outreach? Do we have administrators who are also, I was thinking, how do we, where do we put people? How do we physically orient a building? Wayfinding is so important in an organization. So as a person who spends a lot of time on college campuses, I think those are the types of conversations we should be having in response to your question. Yeah.
So I think one of the challenges in listening to this conversation is talent management and understanding the resources that we have within the organization. And I think we foster within our organization a culture of pigeonholing, so that if an individual is in one area, that's the only area that they're seen in. And very rarely do we take an organizational look at what talent exists within the institution and how we can leverage that and use that. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts on how we can begin to address that and how that ties into succession planning.
You and I probably had a couple conversations about this because this is, I think, one of the defining things in community colleges and higher education, because we have had this model for the last 100 and some years where we constantly, we just keep doing employee management and talent management the same way. That's not a sustainable model. We're going to have conversations. Right now, if I'm correct, just see that 50% of our staff are eligible for retirement within the next 5 years. I think it's 50-some% of our faculty. So if we know that to be true, how as an organization are we redefining the ways in which we build within, and at the same time think about the needed diversity that we have to have within our employee ranks? So a couple ideas I have. I have a friend of mine who works for Kraft, or used to work for Kraft, and I was always struck by the fact that every 3 months, as a manager, they came together and everybody who was on a team, they assessed where they are with their goals. Every 3 months. And what they did then is say, okay, you know what, this is a good idea. Jose is in a good position to be able to transfer into this unit, and what we're going to do is give him these skill sets and these experiences so that in 6 months, this position we know is going to be available. It was a matrix. They literally sat down and planned that out in a way that I thought was very, and I said, can you imagine if we did that in higher education? So if I know that I have X number of positions, somebody's going to be retiring or someone is going to be making a move into a different position, how have we at every level of the organization said, okay, let's plan here. Okay, and Jason has a skill set. He's very strong in these areas. I want to complement him with this, and then we're going to put him in these experiences. I mean, that to me is some power, and but we haven't been designed to do that, right? I mean, and it's actually, in a lot of ways, very foreign to us to think about that in that way. We're going to have to. I'm suggesting to you that we're going to be doing it, too, as a matter of fact. We're already having this conversation with our Taleo system. We're having it with our classification and compensation structure. And then how do we begin to groom our own talent within the organization? The competition is going to be fierce. So if we can figure out how to keep our own, and we know, and at the same time, to be very correct, everybody in the organization is not going to stay here forever. Right? Our intent should also be from time to time to bring in new talent based on the needs of the organization to keep us fresh so we don't become so incestuous that we never do anything new, right? So there's a delicate balance, and it's a science and an art that we're going to have to cultivate in higher education. And I would tell you that I think Montgomery College is going to be in the forefront of doing that. So when we looked at our classification study that we're in the midst of right now, and then we're coupling that with our voluntary retirement program, then we're coupling that with these positions are not going to be going right back to these areas. And we know all these 7 truths. Y'all know we're going to have to put some frontline people in student services to do that. But we're also going to have to create some ladders in order for that to do that. We're going to have some serious conversations about how we plan and structure that as an organization. So those are the types of conversations we have to have, but it's going to make some folks uncomfortable. But I think it also makes some other people excited because they can actually see a future within the organization. Yeah.
All right, let me take another question from the web, and then I'll come on over. And so this is another economic question that I know you addressed before, but speak of mutuality and common experiences. How can we increase pay equity for adjuncts at Montgomery College?
Yeah, I think that's a very big issue that we have to talk about. It's a big one in higher education right now. Many of us, as you know, have been following this in the national discourse in the Chronicle and so forth. They're actually talking about pay disparity for adjuncts between adjuncts and full-time faculty. Part of what we have to do, one, is to sit down and actually define what the roles and responsibilities are of faculty, those who are full-time and those who are adjunct. And once we're able to sit down and do that, and we have some of that, I think we have it a lot within our own contractual agreements, but have we, as board policy, which I know the board has been thinking about, actually sitting down and defining what these employee groups are and what they do. And once we have that definition, then we have to sit down and have a very substantive conversation as an organization. It is, if I would say, the third rail in higher education right now and community colleges, because we know that in a lot of ways our system is designed in such a way that we desires a 60-40 balance between part-time and full-time faculty. We haven't actualized that in some time here, but why is that the desired balance? And let's have a conversation about the value added of both. There's a role that is very real about why you want adjunct or part-time faculty. They bring a currency. They actually allow the organization to be more flexible as it relates to the needs of the community we serve. But as an organization, we have to have a serious conversation about compensation. And if that's a part of our master plan, then we have to figure out what we're going to not do in order to do what we think we need to do. Great question.
Well, speaking for the board, DeRionne, first I want to say, you go, DeRionne.
Hey.
You go. And we are very proud of you and the task force for, number one, having the courage to see this trend and force and change and to come up with these very important truths.
Thank you.
And I don't have a question, but I want you to know that the board is very much behind all of this, and we realize how much has changed in just a few months that you've been with us. And the one thing that we do want you to know, and everyone else at the college, we will do everything we can to help find the resources to help you do these things. And I think a couple of things that were just said are very important. You know, we did include the part-time faculty in the search committee because we consider our adjuncts very important to the future of the college. And one of the other things you just said, which is very, very important, we may not be able to do more with less, but we will certainly do the maximum we can with less, and we may have to do other things with less. But the college is definitely on a trajectory to be more independent, to be more entrepreneurial, and we are very proud of the leadership that you're providing and that the cabinet that you have drawn to yourself and to the college, and we look forward to many great years with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and I appreciate all the questions that we have, and I know there's more online and more here, but we have to wrap it up here. So I'll take one last question here from online, which is, how do we actualize these goals you set out, and how do we get started?
Yeah, that's good stuff. So one of the ways we're doing that is through our strategic plan. Those of you who've been actively engaged in that process, you will know that we had a year-long process to look at the indicators of our community, to figure out where we are as an organization, what are the things we should anticipate and respond to. And I think we designed and are in the process of designing a strategic plan that we've never had within the organization before, with very real benchmarks, very real 3- and 5-year goals, and connecting resources. So we have these ideas now that, okay, folks said, we're going to do these activities. The first question is, how are we going to pay for them? So we're aligning resources. We're moving money from other places to do the types of things we need to have done, because it is for naught that we have this beautiful state of the college. We have a whole conversation, this task force work for 4 or 5 months on these truths, and at the end of the day, it becomes yet another piece of paper that sits on the cabinet somewhere or go up on the website. That ain't going to happen under my watch. So we have to sit down as an organization and have very serious conversations of aligning resources, both people and fiscal and energy, to the things that are most important, because ultimately, what the whole truths are about is moving students toward completion. So if we're able to do that from the moment they connect with this organization until the moment they leave, that's the work that we have to do. That's the heavy lifting. And I think that, watch out, we're going to start doing these chat and choose. I think that's what I'm calling them this semester. Doing chat and choose, where you're going to get to come out and have conversations with me about them. It's already in the draft of the strategic plan, these 7 truths to actualize, and get ready as a part of governance and a part of other work to be doing this in the next academic year.
Thank you, and thank you all for joining us for the State of the College address. To learn more about the Common Student Experience and to watch this speech again, visit the President's webpage. Again, thank you very much.